Phoenix Splash TV. Have you ever heard of Babymetal? What am I saying? Of course you have. If you haven't, then you've been living under a rock. Babymetal is getting really popular these days, and since I've listened to both of their CDs, I thought I'd share my thoughts on Babymetal and what I think of it. Some people hate Babymetal, and a ton of people love them. So what do I think about them? First off, let me say that you probably won't hear any of their music in this video unless it's small clips or MIDI files. I have my reasons. So let's start with the lineup, shall we? I mean, this is kind of a band, right? Anyway, on lead vocals you have Su Metal, Yui Metal, and Moa Metal. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing those names wrong. These are the people that most people care about in the group. They sell the music. I mean, look at them. Aren't they cute? Then you have the instrumentalist, the Kami band, who changes members constantly. Here's the current lineup. Notice how they have more than one drummer and many guitar players. That's because they often switch out during live performances. Now let's get something out of the way. Is Babymetal a band? This is a popular debate because as human beings we like to put labels on things. So is it a band? Well, that depends on your definition of a band, which is different for everyone, pretty much. My definition for a band is pretty much the following. Let's look at Led Zeppelin. Though you have two main writers, Page and Plant, you can still hear each member of the band's unique qualities. They all have creative input and there's no outside source dealing with the musical aspect. Now sure, you have record producers and that guy who stole money from them, but at the end of the day, the band was started by a person, then became a team, and then became a machine. With Babymetal, it's a bit different. The concept came from an agency. They have a ton of composers, none of them in the band, and I'm pretty sure none of the members have creative input. And some of the composers might be in the band, but it's really hard to find out. And I'll get to why later. But even in a band like X Japan, where it's one main composer, you could still hear the different styles of each member. In a band like my own, we write out the music, and oftentimes the guitar part will be different than what I wrote or what Chris wrote, just to fit the style of that guitar player and his comfort zone. Same with all the other instruments. This is something that I encourage. With Babymetal, it's like high school marching band. Everything is written out for them and they perform it. So by my definition, I would call them more of a conglomerate than a band. So I wouldn't put them on the top 10 bands of all times lists. It wouldn't be fair to the other bands, because they didn't have a talent agency from the get-go. But labeling aside, what about the music? That's what matters, isn't it? Well, when I first heard Babymetal, I was blown away. The composition is probably some of the best composition I've ever heard, and not just in metal, but in all music. You know how I'm a fan of musical acts that blend genres? Well, this group does it pretty well and pretty often. Let's talk about their first album titled Babymetal. Megetsune was the first one I heard. The instrumentation and the use of Sakura Sakura, a traditional Japanese folk song, was brilliant. It was amazing. Megetsune and Headbanger were by far my favorite. While the others were good, I thought that these two represented the band the best. The kawaii voices were used in a not annoying way, and the instrumentation was great. There was one thing that bugged me about the album though. Look at all these freaking composers, man! Like, how are bands supposed to compete with this giant kawaii machine? Now you might notice something interesting about this. A lot of these names are nicknames, much like names you would see in the SNK Neo Geo video game credits, if you happen to get to the end of them. One of the common names on this list is Yu Yippee? Whatever, I can't pronounce that. He's a Vocaloid composer. But back to my point on why I don't consider this a real band. It's the conglomerate, man. Now, their first album was good, don't get me wrong, but for me, it was their second album, Metal Resistance, that really made me a fan. Road of Resistance was pretty damn good, and it was the first song on the album. It was revealed to be written by Sam Totman and Herman Lee, who are primary composers of Dragon Force, and also produced by Takeshi Ueda, who has remixed songs by the Yellow Magic Orchestra. Does it say that in their credits? No, it's anonymous. The next song, Karate. Now, it's a good song and many people's favorite. It's catchy, it uses the kawaii in a not annoying way, but there's one thing that bothers me about it. The credits, Yu Yo Yuppie. Look at this, he uses his stage name as the lyric writer and composer, but for the arrangement, he makes a nickname out of his stage name. Why? And then we have Give Me Chocolate 2.0, also known as Awadama Fever or Bubble Fever, because it uses many of the same chord progressions and musical ideas as Give Me Chocolate. I like Awadama Fever more than Chocolate though. It's more interesting song structure wise. There are other great songs on this CD like Yava, Syncopation, and Amore. And there are ones that I really didn't like too much, Sis Anger being one of them. I felt like with that one, someone wrote it for growling, and Sue Metal just ended up singing around one note the whole time. My two favorite songs on the album are the final two tracks, Tales of Destinies and The One, which might surprise some of you watching this. When you're a songwriter, these types of songs are the ones that'll teach you a ton about music composition. The rhythmic structure and the motifs are what I love about these two songs. Everything is just done so well. It's probably one of the best endings to an album I've ever heard. I found the composer too. He's known as Mishmash. There's his picture. There's one song in particular though that really threw me off. That was the song No Rain, No Rainbow. If you know me, you know X Japan, and if you know X Japan, you know Yoshiki. No Rain, No Rainbow apparently pays homage by ripping off the chord progression of Endless Rain's guitar solo during its guitar solo. Just listen to Endless Rain by X Japan and No Rain, No Rainbow, and you could argue that X Japan got ripped off. Only they didn't. Look at this credit. Yoshifu Metal, huh? No one really talks about it, but I think Yoshiki from X Japan is involved with Babymetal. I mean, think about it. If you were to start a band as big as Babymetal in Japan, wouldn't you bring the god of Japanese metal on board? Yoshiki probably wrote this song, and no, not just the piano part. He's perfectly capable of writing the other parts as well. He has tweeted about Babymetal in the past and has met them on a number of occasions. Another theory is that it's a copycat composer. Never heard of a copycat composer? Usually it's a person or a team paid to study one composer and write exactly like them. The Final Fantasy composer Nobuo Uematsu has plenty of copycat composers, and so does Taylor Swift. But that nickname pretty much spells it out for us, Yoshifu Metal. Could it be Yoshiki of X Japan? Probably. Now I know what you're thinking, but Game Analyzer, Babymetal is not a ripoff of X Japan in any way, shape, or form. And you're totally right. They're totally different. In every aspect. So that's what I think about Babymetal. It's pretty good. The act itself is one of a kind. Tons of composers come together and experiment with the group, and oftentimes it turns out pretty well. They're getting tons of recognition. Their music even came out on WWE recently, and that company is known to be pretty racist. But like I said before, I'd never compare them to bands like Lunacy or Led Zeppelin, because they're two different kinds of beasts. But if you do, then I'm not really gonna stop you. I mean, it's just my opinion. So, have you ever heard of Babymetal? Do you consider them a band? Do you consider them metal? Leave it in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, suggest, and all that good stuff. This is Game Analyzer, signing off.